All right, let's talk ESG. As a portfolio manager, you're living and breathing it every day. But here's the real question. Is your disclosure actually building trust, or is it just there? Today, we're going to dive into the CFA Institute's framework, a game plan, really, for turning your transparency into a serious competitive edge.
You know, the biggest boogeyman in the ESG world isn't a bad quarter. It's the slow poison of mistrust. We're talking about greenwashing. It doesn't even matter if it's intentional or not. It can absolutely tank investor confidence. And that's exactly what these standards are here to fight.
So, what's the solution? Well, the CFA Institute rolled out these global ESG disclosure standards. And look, this isn't just another compliance headache. Think of it more like a universal translator for ESG. It's a way to speak a common language that brings real clarity, consistency, and most importantly, credibility to everything you say about your strategy.
Okay, here's the game plan for today. We'll start with the ESG data challenge, then jump into how to disclose that info and how to really integrate the stuff that matters. We'll even walk through a real-world example. And we'll wrap up by talking about why all this disclosure is so crucial. Sound good? Let's jump in.
All right, let's get right into it. Provision 2A.6, disclosing your ESG information.
So this provision basically asks you to answer three key things. Step 1, where and how are you using this ESG info? Is it for picking stocks, building the whole portfolio? You gotta say. Step 2, what kind of info is it and where are you getting it from? And step 3, and this one is absolutely huge, you have to talk about the risks and limitations of that data. You know, what are its weak spots and what are you doing about it?
And the sources for this info can be all over the map, right? We're talking regulatory filings, company reports, third-party data providers, even your own team's research from issuer calls or supplier interviews. The standards get that. They're not saying one source is better than another. They're just saying, hey, whatever your secret sauce is, you need to tell us what's in it.
Okay, next up, let's talk about Provision 2A.7, integrating material ESG factors. Because, look, it's one thing to have the data. It's a whole other ballgame to actually use it systematically, especially when we're talking about what's financially material.
And just like before, this breaks down into 3 simple steps. First, you've got to explain your process. How do you decide what's material? Is it your own in-house model? Are you leaning on a framework like SASB? Lay it out. Second, how does that info actually get baked into your investment decisions? And third, be honest about the exceptions. Are there times or places where you don't consider this stuff? You need to disclose that too.
So that begs the question, right? What exactly does financially material even mean? Well, the standards actually put the ball in your court. It's basically any ESG info that you, the investment manager, believe is relevant to risk and return. That's a lot of flexibility, which is great, but it also means the pressure's on you to have a really solid, defensible process for how you make that call.
All right, enough with the theory. Let's put this into practice and see what it actually looks like in the real world.
Let's imagine you're running a climate-focused fund. Your whole strategy hinges on using carbon emissions data to make smart investment choices. So, how would you go about disclosing that using these standards?
Well, first off, you'd lay out your data sources. You might say something like, we get our Scope 1 and 2 emissions data from external vendors and our carbon intensity metrics from nonprofit organizations. See? Right there, you're checking the box for Provision 2.8.6. You're being crystal clear about the types of information you use and where you get it from.
But here's where it gets really good. This is where you tackle that all-important third step, the risks and limitations. You'd be upfront and say something like, look, not all companies report this stuff, so a lot of it is based on estimates that can vary. But then, and this is key, you explain how you manage that risk. For instance, we specifically chose a data provider whose estimation methods align with the greenhouse gas protocol. Now that is what real transparency looks like. It's not hiding the warts, it's explaining how you deal with them.
So, after all that, you might be thinking, why does this matter so much? Why go to all this trouble?
Well, it's because this is so much more than just a compliance exercise. It's the very foundation of investor trust. Think about it. When you're totally transparent about your process, your data, and maybe most importantly, its flaws, you're not just making marketing claims anymore. You're building real credibility. You're showing your work, and that's how you earn lasting trust.
So as you go back and look at your own ESG approach, I want to leave you with this one question to think about. Is your disclosure just a shield you're using for compliance? Or is it a bridge you're actively building to create real, lasting trust with your investors? How you answer that could change everything.